so. Well, I've mentioned the gentleman who's running for Deputy General Secretary of the NEU, of course, Britain's largest teaching union, Martin Powell-Davies, and I'm pleased to say he joins me now. Mr. Powell-Davies, you're quoted as saying that the government's plans are completely reckless. Why? In what way? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, we've all gone through weeks and months of lockdown, and we're in a very delicate situation. And while the thanks from the Minister are welcome, because absolutely everybody working in schools has been working extremely hard because we do care about our communities and about the students we teach. But what we don't want to do is allow the government to make a big mistake and to rush schools back quicker than the modelling suggests might be safe. All I'm suggesting, and all the union are suggesting, is that we look at the advice of scientists like Independent Sage, or indeed like the CDC, the federal advice in the United States, saying that if your infection rates are still too high, then you wait. You wait for vaccination numbers to increase, you wait for infection rates to go down, and then have a gradual return. And at the moment, there are some of your listeners who will be in parts of the country, like I am myself up in the northwest, where rates are well up towards 200. In some areas locally, they are rising. That is not a safe basis to get a fifth of the population in England all back mixing together again.
Would the situation be different, do you feel, had the government sought to immunise teachers during the half-term holidays?
Certainly, I think staff would feel happier, but you've got to remember it takes a while for that vaccination to take effect. But actually, it wouldn't really resolve the problem. This is not so much about us as staff, although people obviously are concerned about their own safety. It's about community safety. And, of course, the reality is that young people won't be vaccinated, and therefore you will have massive mixing of households in schools from March the 8th. And therefore, there is a real risk being taken by this government, and all of their own official modelling by SAGE, not by anybody else, but by their own advice on the government website, all shows a peak of infections returning after Easter. And that's the concern.
When would you say it was safe then?
As I say, let's stick to that model, which has been worked out in other areas, in Norway, in America, where...
If you choose to quote other countries, I'll take you to countries such as France and Slovakia, where the children are back in their respective schools.
But with all sorts of other mitigations in place.
Well, let's put those here.
But the problem is, you will then get into issues which will also be another debate. People will be concerned about mask wearing. I'm quite happy
we're going to have that anyway, aren't we?
Look, just to return not necessarily, just to return to your question. Then my view would be that if in your local area the rates are down beneath 50, then absolutely let's get back with a full return with the other mitigations in place. If they're more than 50, then we should be doing it on half class sizes. Nobody is saying that schools shouldn't go back. What we're saying is that they should go back in a phased basis, and we're appealing to all head teachers and governors and local authorities who are listening to look at their local infection rates, and if they are above 50, to consider a gradual return. And to be honest, if they're up at 200, I think you should be delaying and not even going wider than, of course, the many students that are already in place in early years and primary already.
When you talk of the union showing collective strength, what does that mean?
Well, obviously, some of the tabloids have seemed to present it that I'm suggesting that we're going to be going on strike next week. I mean, obviously, that's anybody who understands the legislation. That's not the case. What I'm saying is, what can a trade union do to protect itself and the people who use schools? Then, obviously, we've got the strength of trade union action.
Well, what does that mean if not strike action? What action is that then?
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm saying is...
So it is strike action?
If it was required, as I say, after Easter, we're back
Why did you piously assault the tabloid newspapers who use the word strike action, and then 2 questions later you agree it could lead to strike action?
Nick, the implication they're giving, because they clearly don't understand the trade union legislation.
But you just told me it could go to strike action.
Mr. Hey, Nick, let me explain. You answered the question. And so what I'm saying is, if the modelling does turn out to be correct, and we are in a situation where we go up riding this third wave yet again, and everything is back heading in the wrong direction, then if trade unions balloted in those areas where we feel that the risk is the greatest, at least then we would be able to come to people's rescue, if you like, by making sure that we could say, actually, the schools aren't safe.
All right.
Because if ministers aren't listening to their own scientific advice, then I think it's the responsibility of trade unionists to say, actually, this is not safe, and we're going to have a ballot in place. So if the predictions are correct, we're ready to actually step in. I think that's possible.
You talk lots about coming to people's rescue. There are many who argue that it's the children who need rescue. They need rescue educationally and emotionally, and possibly for health reasons as well. Don't the children need rescuing?
Absolutely, and we want the children.
Is that your job?
We want the children back, and as the Minister has been saying, educators have been working extremely hard in very difficult conditions to try and support children over weeks and months now. But what we don't want is a situation whereby the government acting rashly, acting recklessly, that actually, rather than being permanently back in school next term, they actually have to start returning back home again because the situation has led to outbreaks, has led to increasing infection rates. That's the thing that we've got to guard against. It's a question of balance and of not rushing things, and that's all we're asking.
All right, just ask you, what subject is it you teach?
Sorry?
What subject is it you teach?
I teach science and engineering.
Aren't you desperate to get the pupils, the students, in front of you again? Isn't that what you actually want to do?
Well, first of all, just to explain that all our students are in front of us all the time in the way
physically, particularly a subject such as engineering. I think a lot of it is going to be practical, isn't it? I would have thought. I didn't take it, but
yeah. So just to take myself for example, behind me you will find a whole load of electrical equipment that I brought home from my workplace. And I've been using that and videoing it. It's not perfect. In other words, I'm just a small example of the tremendous work that educators have been doing to try to get this done. And obviously, I'm telling my students, let's wait for that moment. It'll be much better if you're able to do this yourself. You can do this hands-on. Of course, we all understand that.
Okay.
But they, like me, I think you forget that students and parents are also fearing the worst. We've been through this situation before where people have assured us in September everything would be fine, and come December it wasn't.
Well, we didn't have the vaccine then, of course, Mr. Powell. We didn't have the vaccine then, Mr. Powell-Davies, in December, as the country does now, of course, so perhaps the horizon has changed. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. Be well, and I'm sure you want to get back teaching your students face-to-face. Martin Powell-Davies, teacher, running for Deputy General Secretary of the National Education Union. We'll speak